Thank you for joining. The format of this is I'll introduce myself and the company a little bit, let you know about what we're doing in the offer. We've got plenty of time for questions, and if people are interested, I can move from the presentation to a little bit of a demo, and or to answer questions. So hi, I'm Avi Freedman. As Linda mentioned, I started Kentik. I'm one of the founders, and I run the company. I am a service provider from the way back. I started the first internet provider in Philadelphia back in '92. And before that, when I was at Temple University, I had fun hanging out using the unsaturated T1 and working in both departmental and academic computing, doing networking and administration and other fun things. So I have a little bit of a background, but didn't choose to stay there as a career, decided to focus on access. Going to give you a little bit of overview about Kentik, who we are and what we do, and about the offer and ways that we have, currently we have higher ed customers helping to manage the network with analytics, and just review the offer. And as I said, happy to take questions about what we're doing here, or just more generally about network observability and monitoring and things like that. So just as background, we're a 6-year-old company. Whoops, that should say 280 plus customers. We have a few hundred customers. About half of them are service providers, which includes higher ed, access providers, cloud companies, transit providers. So many of the people that you peer with and the services that you use on the internet use us. And then the enterprise, those services can be traditional enterprise, but also SaaS companies, including Zoom, who we're using right now, a lot of collaboration companies, e-commerce, media, people like that, people that are very network centric in their businesses that run pretty key networks are Kentik customers. So the problem that we set out to solve was, when we were looking at this, the world of networking analytics was generally unclustered open source. So there were things that looked at traffic data that were more to 90s scale, or more security focused and still unclustered, or appliances. And that was not what our crowd of people that were running orchestrated and internet scale networks were looking for. And so we started, we decided to start a platform with a big data approach to do more broadly network telemetry. And where we started was with traffic. And as I'll talk a little bit about, we just actually released synthetic. So part of the free offer is actually now network performance testing, as well as looking at your actual current network traffic. So before I get into a little bit, I'll give everyone, the tease. The offer is a 3-month subscription with basically everything, all the functionality that you need. If you need a little bit more dimensionality than some of this, we're happy to talk, but it includes traffic analytics, synthetics, cloud flow logs if you have projects or departments that are using cloud, and retention. And again, we designed this more around edge, but if there are people that have interest in other use cases, we're happy to expand this, the offer. Support is the way we would normally do, but we also have others in higher ed, and look to do community interaction and help people support each other, with our help as well. So the goal of Kentik was to have a platform for people to do network analytics, as I talked about, which is your networks and the cloud. It is orchestration, which is what to most of our customers sort of is automation, which is integrate with the processes, the IPAM, whether it's Kubernetes for applications, the things which know what's on the network, and then make sure that everything is monitored as it's turned up, turned off, monitoring when it's turned down, and you understand performance and security. We do try to be a broad platform, so not just traffic, not just SNMP and streaming telemetry, not just synthetics, but to bring it all together. There are some things we don't yet do, like config monitoring and some IGP type monitoring, but that, again, we think about into the future, how do we provide more broadly observability. And then we started as Kentik as a big data platform that you could put everything in, enrich it, understand everything. But as we've grown and as our customers get more diverse, we've seen that there may be 3 or 4 architects that bring Kentik in to answer planning, provisioning, double click, and deep dive debug, but that for operations or departments or other people, they need insights to say, hey, here are the things that you might want to look at, and here's what it means. And we've evolved the product a little bit that way. So philosophy-wise, it's take all the telemetry in real time, enrich it so we know what application, geo, BGP context, even user, although that's often with a token, we don't want to know anything about identity of users or customers, and then store it and be able to let people use it. So the food that we take is your network, your data center, public cloud, internet, its flow, routing data, VPC flow, host, its metrics and SNMP, and streaming telemetry, and synthetics data. Comes into Kentik, we normalize it, we enrich it, and then it goes into both a streaming learning system and the system that stores it so that you can use it in the UI, and everything is available via APIs. Both click in the UI and say, get me the API call, and we actually even have a streaming push. So if you have other systems that want to consume network data, you can connect through Kafka from Kentik to those other systems. I mentioned a little bit, this is a very busy slide, happy to take questions now or come back, but traffic we think of pretty broadly is from all the different kinds of infrastructures. As I mentioned, device telemetry is not so simple anymore. There's SNMP, there's people playing with streaming telemetry, there's things with optics that you can't really get even today from SNMP and streaming telemetry, so we think about how do we get that otherwise. The metadata is this other dimension which is a big focus for us, which is taking DNS data so we can see which gaming services and other things your access users are doing. Taking threat data so that whether it's yours or we have some built in so that you can understand whether things are compromised. Looking at cost, so you can enter the cost of each of your transit on the commercial side, or if you have backbone costs, application, as I said, Kubernetes or other kinds of IPAM and application. So the goal is that your users don't have to memorize IP addresses, but can actually understand and say, show me by building department, SaaS provider, gaming provider, OTT, show me my Netflix performance or traffic, which you can't do just from NetFlow and geography and BGP data, because some of these things are built as overlays. And then the new thing for us, as I mentioned, is synthetics. So we have an agent, which we're actually open sourcing, that does network layer tests, and we'll be climbing up the stack, first with web objects and DNS tests, and then more complete page downloads and even into audio and video. And then once things are in the platform, as I mentioned, we have an API. We do outbound orchestration control and chat ops for people that use Slack or ServiceNow or Teams or things like that. So that's the telemetry that we take. The way we combine it together is by ingesting it and normalizing it and enriching it, and then doing learning and also letting you have full access to the data. And the way we think of what's going on as universities and access networks are certainly in uncertain times is traffic is moving. There's uncertainty about even how much will be access, how much will be, it looks like right now everyone's going to need to use the internet to get to collaboration providers, even to peering. Things which are not as much on campus require even greater visibility. And as I said, we focus the trial around the edge, even though we do a lot with data center, WAN, and other kinds of visibility. And so this is the world that service providers are in. It's even interesting the world enterprise is looking a little bit like this too, where They've got to make sure that for them, it's their employees and their users and the people they collaborate with. And everyone is sort of in this mode of where's the traffic, what's the performance, how does that impact the mission of trying to deliver, in this case, education, and in some cases, hospital services and other kinds of revenue. The way Kentik is organized in the portal, and I'll give a little glimpse of this before we finish, is we have some basic operation functionality, which lets you look at the network from a super high level on a map, or by group, by site, by network, all the way down to the individual traffic, flow or metrics or other things for people wanting to do forensics. We have a lot of edge-focused functionality, which is obviously the world that I2 is in. So peering and transit, and what are my costs, traffic engineering, links are full, and we bring in, as I said, BGP, as well as DNS if you have it, as well as the metrics and costs. Because we have a big edge focus, a lot of our customers are very focused on DDoS. We think of that as an availability problem. Now, some of our service provider customers think of it as a revenue problem. You may have had conversations with them about that. But in the educational community, it's generally just protect, the outside, or even when there's more of an access network, make sure that my users are not contributing to issues regarding VCP38 or or just general attacks. And then where we do have some pure service provider functionality, and a lot of it overlaps with education, where you're probably not as interested in the sales prospecting, but looking at all the OTT services, CDNs, on the CDN side, we do mapping of what's Akamai, what's Facebook CDN, all the different CDNs out there. But on the OTT side, we do need DNS, which gets into security and privacy review, to actually map what's Apple, what's which Apple services, what's coming to you over peering versus from that CDN or that CDN. Those are all things that we can do if that's something that you can support from a privacy and instrumentation perspective. So that's a little bit about the approach that we take, which is bring the network telemetry in, enrich it, and then let people have at it. Both at a high level down to the details and via API, kind of the telemetry that we take, a little bit about how we organize the product. And I'll talk right now, if there are no questions about those, a little bit about something new for us, which is actually performance testing. So historically, we were very traffic-based. What is your traffic? What is your network? What is your routing? But we've actually added synthetic monitoring, so network performance testing, but very integrated with Kentik. So the way we think about that is understand your staff and student performance, whether they're campus or whether they're remote, and so that's team or user in the more traditional world, but also your infrastructure and especially internet peering and transit performance. And so we have customers looking at the SaaS applications, the collaboration providers, parts of their infrastructure, parts of partner infrastructure, and we've designed it to be very easy to use. And as part of this offer, you'll get that, and you can even deploy the agent that we have in your infrastructure to help with monitoring. The things that we really tried to build in based on customer feedback were integrating traffic and synthetics. So you can actually say, test this network, test that CDN, and we'll test the destinations that you're actually moving traffic to and change that over time. So the other thing is traffic, as we talked about, shifts a lot. I mean, sometimes it can macro shift, off of building, off of campus, and your testing needs to reflect that, because getting a bunch of alerts for things which no longer matter is a waste of time. And then the other thing is just related to that is a lot of our customers said, could you just build this so that it's automated so I don't have to do manual testing? You still can set up manual tests, but our hope is you would tell Kentik, these are my top applications, these are my top peers, and then Kentik's designed to let you actually do testing. So again, you could say test Comcast, we'll figure out what destinations are important to you in Comcast from your traffic and set those up. You can still set up your own static tests if you want. And then in Kentik, when you look at things, you're looking at traffic, you're looking at topology, you're looking at the device health metrics, and you're looking at the performance all in one place. So that's a little bit about what we've built there, which is new since our last webinar, and it's a new thing for us this quarter. So broadly, network troubleshooting, peering is, as I mentioned, is a big thing for us in capacity planning, costs around that, looking at those logical networks. I call them the magic packet transporters. I was at Akamai for 10 years. So we did good stuff, and we caused headaches for network people by moving traffic around. So we have a lot of functionality around that, and then DDoS. So those are if you talk to the people at our higher ed customers, those are the kinds of things that they talk about doing. There is an aspect of this that we're thinking about, which is how can we help collaboration. We've got some global views of performance, which is easier from a PII perspective than traffic, but we do have customers. It is obviously a very collaborative community that you all are in, and we think about how can we actually move from one account doing this to people collaborating, and are happy to take feedback about that. So that was my intro, and we've got plenty of time, so I'll do a quick little demo after any questions that have surfaced so far. The offer again is we want to make this easy to try. We want to help. If there's people that need this for a little bit larger or a little bit longer, just feel free to reach out to us. It's something we did at the beginning of the year. We did even longer period of time just because we knew about the uncertainty, and we certainly don't want, we want people to help manage the network more than worrying about timing of budgets and things like that. So I can pick on some people to maybe, or name some question topics, but I have one more slide, and then I'll take some questions and then do a little demo. So just to talk about onboarding a little bit, if you do want to get started, the Kentik onboarding process, we have one process where you can onboard to just start network performance testing. As I mentioned, we try to use your traffic data to make that even better, but you can get started without sending flow. The other path for onboarding is we do want to understand what's your traffic. That's generally net flow or S flow from routers and switches. That's where people start. BGP feeds and the metrics. Once the flow is in, we want to understand what's external and internal. So a little bit about what your interfaces are, and then everything, pretty much from there is functional. And we're happy to help with it. Or for people that like to be more independent, you're welcome to do that yourself. So that's a little bit about what it looks like to get started. So just stopping for a minute, any questions? I am curious if people are interested in sharing what they do for traffic, metrics, and performance, visibility and analytics, or what gaps, what things they'd like to have. Or I can go into the demo if there are no questions right now.
No questions right now, Avi. We will take questions in the chat if you want to put them into the chat, and then I'll read them out of the chat to Avi. But
Let me just get that set
so
up.
For right now,
Destroyed my YubiKey, so I must go to Google Authenticator. What you are looking at here is the front page of Kentik. It's the what you see when you log into the portal. Let me just pull up my chat here. It's got, as I mentioned, a high-level overview of what's going on your network, total traffic, traffic by site, top talkers in different dimensions that you might be interested in, ASs and geography, site. Summaries of some of the functionality that I'll quickly show you around connectivity cost and capacity planning and DDoS and CDN. You can switch, if you prefer, into a topology view that gives you a map-based view of your infrastructure. We call that on-prem, traffic to the internet, and your cloud infrastructure that you use from the big public clouds. And then synthetics, which is network performance testing that you've set up in Kentik, which actually includes, if you go into the synthetic side, we also give you performance as we're seeing it from the world to SaaS providers, and we're going to be bringing in cloud providers, API providers, and other things as our customers say that's interesting. So we call this the Network Explorer. There's the site sort of based view, the topology view, and the synthetics. And while in Kentik, things look like you might expect to see in a time series database, everything is actually built up from all of the raw data. So you can always go into what we call Data Explorer and get into what you might be familiar with or looking for from a expert flow tool, where you look at what devices, you say, okay, well, what I really want to see is IP addresses and AS numbers. You can organize that as you like, run a query, add filters. So everything that you see in Kentik is fast and looks like it's rollups, but actually is based on the raw data. As you navigate, things like filters, where we came up from a site, and so it said, look at Kentik SF. This is a synthetic demo account, gets passed along. And then if you have a query, you can get the API call for it. You can put it into a dashboard. You can create a save view. You can copy and paste this, put it into chat. So we try to make it easy in Kentik to go all the way up from high-level views, even topology-based for people that don't live in the network every day, to all the way down to double-click and look. That's two sides of what we're trying to do there from the core network analytics. We also have insight and alerting I'll come back and talk about, but these things we call workflows, which are designed to help you do specific things. So for example, discover peers, where we look at your traffic, we bring in peering DB information, we say, hey, there are some potential peers that you could talk to and can look at. So, I might want to see what does Akamai, well, let me just use someone that's not a CDN. What does T-Mobile look like for me? And again, this is not actual traffic, this is synthesized traffic. And we bring in the peering DB information, and then we'll bring in information about what traffic looks like across your network. So that's for actual networks. I should have used one with somewhat more traffic, but we'll show you IP addresses and prefixes and geographies and sites that you connect to people in. We also, on the other side, as I mentioned with DNS, we'll show you the OTT services that you're using for, again, this would be more if people are campus or access networks that you support, where you can look at gaming, you can look at each of the sites, each of the kinds of providers there. And if we have DNS, we'll show you all that traffic, and then you can actually see CDN breakdowns, location, and people are using that to tune that traffic, because most of our access customers see by far more than 50% of their traffic is today OTT and CDN. We do similar for CDN. We also have some connectivity cost management, where for your commercial side, you can input the transit costs. We have some traffic engineering, where if you have links that are very full, We can help you find traffic and identify it to move off. And so all those things we call workflows, and they're things we build on top of the queries. And then the last, I won't go into it in huge detail, but we have insights and alerting. We create libraries of things that you can look at to find performance or traffic shifts or attacks, especially on the DDoS side, that have the full power of what we're doing with the data engine of Kentik. And then we also have things we call insights, where we're looking at changes in your network and proactively telling you, and by default we turn those on and people can tune, how they want those to be. So you'll see a feed of insights, which could be dashboards, it could be DDoS, or it could be traffic shifts, things like that. That's a part of the platform too. So
Avi,
that's it. Yeah.
Avi, this is George Loftus. You mentioned the DDoS. We have a partnership. We work with Radware. Several of our regional members and campuses use the Radware DDoS mitigation service, but we don't have a detection portion of that. And I know that Radware has talked about working closely with Kentik. Is that something you could talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I will actually go back into insight and alerting. So we have a direct integration with Radware. Let me just show you, the mitigation platforms that we support. We've got built-in integrations with Radware, actually Cloudflare Magic Transit if people are using them, A10, and then we can do RTBH and FlowSpec. With Radware, we even have some functionality where we'll pull some attack status so you can see it in Kentik, and they have some functionality using our APIs. So in Radware, you can see what the status of that is. And so we have the built-in integration for Radware on-prem scrubbing, and then we have ways that we can, through RTBH and other triggers, engage their cloud scrubbing. Is your partnership around both cloud? Is it more cloud or more on-prem, or is it a hybrid?
The Internet 2 offering is cloud only,
okay.
But we do have some members who do have some Radware on-prem as well.
Yeah, so we'd probably RTBH signal them on the cloud side, and then on the on-prem side, we can configure the appliances directly. And we're thinking about their control platform doing integration there. And we've also done that because their control platform can control Arbor, and Arbor refuses to integrate with us for reasons that people may be familiar with. So yeah, the DDoS side is something we're happy for people to try. Our customers really, sometimes it comes out of a security budget, but it's really about availability. If you're connecting to the world through your internet edge and someone's clogging it up, then you're not serving users, students, and staff. So. And again, I can answer some specific questions about DDoS. I'm not actually the best person in the company to do that, but I can show alerts and things like that. And we actually have some customers which one-on-one are willing to let us show you what DDoS looks like in a production network, but I can't show, in a place that we're recorded. So.
Thank you.
Sure. So that there ends the brief Kentik tour. I can show you a little bit about setup, dimensionality, some of the things that we can take, but really the goal of this was to give you a high-level summary and an opportunity to ask any questions. The offer, let me just pull that up again.
I'll wait till you get the offer, and then I do have a question here that I'll ask you.
I'll take the question.
Okay, you'll multitask, Avi?
I will multitask. I'm just
okay. Someone has asked if paying customers have the option to upgrade to have archived data longer than just 30 days. So I don't think that they're specifically asking about the offer because they seem to be a paying customer already, but they wonder about the option to upgrade to have archived data longer.
Yeah, absolutely. So we think about that a few ways. First of all, the default for our commercial offering is 45 days, but we have people that do 90 or 120 days of what we call full. So that's all the flow, storing it online, it's all available, not archived. We also have, if you were to go into, the Data Explorer, and you look at something over a longer time period. So if you look at it over 3 months or 6 months, we have the ability to keep what we call trending data. Now, it's not roll-ups because today our platform doesn't actually do roll-ups. It's resampled. So it's 30 flows per second of each device that we will keep for a year or two, or as long as people would like. Today, we don't have an export to object storage or other kind of archive. It's something we're thinking about. One of the things that we're doing, which you'll see us talking about, and we're happy to redo the webinar with that, is we're actually going to be open sourcing some of our edge ingest. So the way we think about that is if you want to archive, we have a fire hose, we can send it to you in Avro, all the data after we've actually enriched it, and then you can archive it, or you can do streaming analytics, or you can do other things on it as well. And then some of our agents also, like the synthetics agent, the host monitoring, some of the metrics, we're going to be open sourcing them so they can send to Kentik and to your Influx or Elastic or your other systems. So yes, you can keep more in Kentik, and that's something we're happy to do. Obviously, we have a cost to do that. We have a long-term trending data set that people use for network planning, where they don't need all the flow records to be kept for quite as long. And then we can export it to you so you can archive it, but we don't do archiving directly. And I see that David asked a question. We are a SaaS company, so we're a service, but we can deploy in your network if that's a security requirement. It is generally on the service provider side, we see people wanting to do that. The only thing we need in-network is if you want to encrypt the traffic, we have an encrypting proxy. But generally, our data sources are from things that can export telemetry real time, and then it's just a question of whether you want to encrypt it and transport, do SNMP and things like that locally. We also peer with people, so direct peering, Megaport, Packet Fabric. So for people that use us, even some in the university side will peer with us on the commercial side through an exchange to send us the traffic.
Okay. We'll see if he has a follow-up question or if that did it. Yeah. We'll watch that in the chat. And then is this all cloud-based or is there an appliance?
Yeah, so it is all cloud-based for the Kentik Cloud. We have, for this audience, we're based in Ashburn. We also have a cluster in Frankfurt. And as I said, if people have critical requirements, we see this more, for example, for people that have hospital networks or other kinds of things, then we can do things on-prem, but our system is a clustered big data system. So you could think of it as 4U 8-node would be the minimum to deploy. And because we're every week releasing new features, we don't ship software, but we will run a cluster for you in your infrastructure if that's something that you require. And it could be in cloud, although for the kind of data volume that we do, it's generally cheaper to run. Our technology stack runs more cost effectively on bare metal than running in cloud, but we can and do run in cloud. So it's generally cheaper all around to have us run it, but if people require, for whatever reason, we can run it, a dedicated copy for them.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So I wish there were more questions. I would encourage everybody to give it a try, and we're happy to help support that. And especially around the performance side, it's an emerging area for us we're pretty excited about. You can start doing performance testing without traffic, but it gets better, as I mentioned. If you send us traffic, we will automatically test the things which are important to you, and as they change.
This is George again. While we have you and Andy here, can you give us any kind of a indication of how the last promotion went? How many folks took advantage of it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, George, this is Andy. So we did have several institutions leverage the trial. So when we previously ran it, this was in, I believe, in March. We did have a couple institutions take us up on the offer and use the service for the full duration of the trial. As you know, that offer was run exactly the same as this offer, where we had regular support hours. We had engagements with people trying to help them through a couple of different scenarios, and we think we delivered a lot of value. So we're excited to do this again and make the same offer available to everyone in the I2 community to use the Kentik solution again, take advantage of our office hours, use our solution to help you plan for the fall and to run your networks. That's what we're here for.
I think it was closer to a dozen than a couple, but you know, and George, you know, we'd love for it to be dozens. We have a couple dozen higher ed customers today, plus other folks in the educational space that find us, you know, that are on the lower, the smaller size. You know, but we'd love to have more engagement. As you know, we've been interested for years in trying to find a way to help and support. And as George, as I see in Slack, there was a question Michael asked about, do we peer with I2? And the answer is, you know, we don't want to violate any policies, but we're happy to. You know, we peer directly. We're on Equinix IX, but we peer directly and also via Megaport and Packet Fabric. And I'm quite sure there's plenty of ways we can make that interconnection happen. If it's in policy, then we're certainly happy to support from our end. And, you know, we've got UW, Johns Hopkins, GIT, Penn, you know, we've got a bunch of customers that are, you know, of good scale that, you know, most, some of them peer and some of them don't. So it'd be great to have a path to them.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like what my colleagues are you're pointing out here is that, you know, there'd be the advantage of none of this traffic going out over the commodity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the traffic volume is generally not that bad. So, you know, you could think of it as, if you want to use a rough rule, 0.1% of your total traffic. So it tends to be, you know, hundreds of megabits, but, you know, it adds up. And even more important, when there's a DDoS attack or something else going on, you don't want to worry about the internet itself being a transport mechanism you have to debug to get to your analytics. So love to support that. In aggregate, we probably have 30 customers, maybe more, that we peer with directly, and then more that we peer with remotely, because again, so many of our customers are internet centric, and peering in transit is what they start using us for on the analytics side.
I think some of the element that my colleagues are talking about also is a little bit of the trust level that the information sending isn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that is an issue because SFlow can have packet headers. So that's why we have that proxy. But if it's sent over peering, it's, you know, I'm also happy to take feature requests if we have any current customers, or to understand if there are gaps or things that you wish someone would be helping with. But I see Paul has a question. So if you don't mind, Paul, if you could elaborate on your question, was from an SP perspective, can we provide a view into the data specific for the SP IP blocks? Could you just give me another sentence on that? What kind of thing you're looking for?
Oh, feel free to speak up, Paul, if you'd like.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So just curious if you could provide a customer-centric point of view. So as a service provider, we have multiple customers. Can you provide a view that's specific just to that customer's data based on the IP blocks that they have?
Yeah. So let me show you a couple things about that. And I should have showed this, my bad. Let me show you a couple things about that. So first of all, we generally do want to know what's the metadata, what is the data, and we have custom dimensions. And a very common thing people will do is have a dimension around customer, or it could be, again, in a university segment, department, or, you know, project, if there's some collaboration where it could be local, it could be remote. And you create it, it's got a name, it's a first-class citizen in Kentik that you can alert on and do dashboards, which I'll show you. And then we have an API for this, so you don't need to do this in the UI, but you can match on IP address, you can match on BGP community, you can match on device. So again, it doesn't have to be customer, it could be project or department, or, you know, dorms, or you know, or labs, you know, plural. All those things are things that you can slice and dice. But we also have two other things that can use that. So the first is, in a more simple way, if you have people that you trust and are network savvy, you can actually add a user for them, but have a filter for that user so that, for example, customer, which is one of those custom dimensions, is burrito explosion. We probably shouldn't use that. Let's, customer is CDNA. So, or again, you know, could be project or subscriber. And then in Kentik, the only traffic they're going to be able to see is traffic for that. But they're going to be able to build their own dashboards and do their own things, and that might be a support issue. So we also have something we call My Kentik Portal, which you all are welcome to do, to use, which is you can set up dashboards and define who the customers are, and they can log in directly to that so that, for example, once we set it up, this is what they'll see. They'll see, you know, university, and, you know, just the dashboard, the library of dashboards that you set up for them, and only their traffic. So you can look at that in more detail in Kentik fully, but you can also create sort of constrained views for them to self-serve. Now, you also can just give them API calls to go get this data, but you'd have to, and you can have the API, the user has an API key, which you can filter to only see their traffic. So those are all different ways that you can do that to give users. Are you thinking, Paul, from a self-service perspective? Or
yeah, exactly. Allow like our customers to be able to see the view of their data so that they can, you know, manage it however they want and not have a view into other folks' data.
Yeah. And as George said, you know, you can talk to Ocean about this, but we also have customers, again, who will just go into Kentik and say, okay, well, I've got the custom dimension. Now I don't know where to look exactly for traffic for, you know, Pear Inc., but I don't know, we could try it. And if you're building the dashboard, you know, if you have a portal that you wanted to bring this in, you can construct a query, and so that the customer ID equals Pear Inc. See if there's any traffic for that. Yeah, and then again, we could break it up and do it in different ways. And then you could say, get the API call for the chart or the data. So if you want to put this just into your own dashboard, then you can do that too. So it depends how sophisticated or how you'd like to present that to the customer.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks. And I see Colburn had a question. Does Kentik figure out the peering topology from the incoming flow data, or does that need to be defined by the user? So no, it doesn't. We automatically, if I just looked at, you know, if I looked at all devices, all traffic, and I just wanted to say, show me by dest, AS path, we're going to automatically look at the traffic and project that across all the ASs that we see. And so that's sort of how you build a peering topology. Now to build for the hybrid map here, we do need metrics. So this part, the internet, is based on BGP, which we peer with you, and we put that on every flow record, what the BGP was at that time, including the full AS path and community string. But for your on-prem topology, including, you know, say if it's a data center, how are things connected, then we do need SNMP or streaming telemetry to get, and then we look at what's connected to what for the on-prem. For the internet, it's more AS based, and that's all automated. The last thing I will show you is for some of the functionality to work best, we do want to do what's called interface classification. Now it's usually, I'm still, excuse me, I'm still in the tenant. So.
Just say wireless.
So we'll pick up the AS side of your topology automatically. But if you want to say how much of this is free peering or paid peering or IX or not, we can parse, do what's called interface classification based on regex on your interfaces to say this is transit, this is paid peering. So that's the next level above peering topology. Does that make sense, or do you have any other questions? Just want to make sure I understand your question correctly about peering topology. And again, feel free to join in. Cool.
So Scott says, thanks, that was a good explanation.
Okay.
You didn't see that.
I didn't know Mr. Colburn's first name, so I didn't want to call him Colburn. Okay. Any other questions? I'm happy to take. I am Avi at kentik.com, and feel free to sign up online, reach out to us. If you go to the sign up page, then and sign up that way, we will be sure to help and nurture and not put you into sales process. But so we have a landing page for this, but again, we're on the lookout for people taking advantage of it, and want to be helpful. A lot of the I2 community are reliant self-starters, and we understand that. So we won't harass you, but want to help if we can. Cool. Well, I'll return some of the time, but as I said, if there are other questions or demands for features, feel free, don't be shy, reach out to me. I thank everybody for running the critical networks as we have the excitement and uncertainty going on.
And thank you very much, Avi. This was a great presentation. This is a great offer, really nice offer for our community. We really appreciate it. So.
Yep, happy to support. Well, have a great rest of the week, everybody.
Thank you, Avi.
Thanks, Avi.
What's the meeting now?